Well, good morning, everybody. This is a pleasure, ain't it? After a long winter break. Before I come to that, let me bring you right up to date. It's the 5th or 6th of June, and Randy, Josefine and I are again in Milford Haven, and we are again battling some unsettled weather. When the prevailing low pressures battle it out in the near Atlantic, the southwest corners of Britain pay the price. So we just have to sit it out, basically. When we arrived 2 weeks ago, we were on our way to the Isle of Man to see the TT. It was been a dream of mine for a long time, and that's now going to have to wait for another year. The weather just wasn't settled enough. Remember, we can't go into marinas, so if we plan a trip like that to the Isle of Man, we need a window of weather to actually do that, where the anchorages are going to be safe, and they certainly haven't been for the last 2 weeks. So we had to cancel that. Our plan now is to get to Ireland. We're going to Wicklow to see some friends of ours, and then onwards from that up to the Scottish West Isles. This year is going to be all about the sailing, not the testing. But we were planning to set off on that yesterday. In fact, we had it all planned to leave at midday yesterday, and we would have been, or should have been, arriving in Wicklow this morning. But because it's unsettled, the nature of unsettled weather is you never know from one day to the next, and it all changed in the last 48 hours to some very blustery and unpleasant conditions in the Irish Sea. And we have no other motive other than fun here, so we'll pick our times. And our next window looks as if it's going to be Tuesday, so we should be setting up on Tuesday for that. And I'll bring you, of course, all of that. However, we're still having fun. We've had a lovely time whilst we've been here. We've caught up with all the lovely friends that we made here last year, which has been nice. And but we're really ready to go now, and we're ready to get on with that program. Remember, this year's all about the sailing, not the testing. So back to the winter maintenance. When I made our last episode, I mentioned to you that after 3 months of relatively up and down sea trials here in Milford Haven with Josephine, that was hot on the heels of 6 years of relentless restoration work of Josephine, and I was left feeling uncharacteristically exhausted when we got back to Gloucester. So I did nothing for a couple of months. And when I got started again with our winter maintenance, I started nice and slowly with a nice easy program of simple maintenance jobs on Josephine, which I'm going to show you now, and beginning with repairing the wheelhouse table that I'm sitting in front of now, which we broke last year. And I've got my 2 grooves now. I've got one groove in the piece hinged on the table, and the bit that fell off, and the idea is that will fit in there. Look, it's 8mm, so that will fit in nicely. So I'm going to measure that groove, add them together, and then cut that piece of wood, drop it in, put some bubble glue in, and then clamp the whole thing up. This end. You can get the worst off. It's really worth it. Nicely set up there, look. Quite happy about that. Next, I tackle a few sewing jobs, one to keep us warm in the winter, and the other to keep our outside lockers dry. Amazing machine. Takes it all in its stride. Look at the thickness of that, and it just went straight through it. This is where they go. That's the doorway through to the engine room and to the heads. and that's the doorway, obviously, with the aperture up to the companionway and the wheelhouse. A lot of our heat from our wonderful fire there, which is heating up the whole boat at the moment, obviously a lot of it goes straight up the companionway into the wheelhouse, which is a bit silly to warm the wheelhouse. We still get plenty of air running through the boat, we've made sure of that. So there you go, another job done. During January, February and March, we did a lot of small maintenance and improvement jobs like that. For example, we completely repainted and revarnished the wheelhouse and the coach house. We reorganised all our locker space. We're downsizing still from years of living on the boat while we rebuilt it, so we're always getting rid of stuff, some of which we managed to sell, which was quite nice because that helps to pay for all of this. We replaced our toilet holding tank. That was a little bit annoying. I thought there was a leak, bought a new tank, there wasn't. But it meant replacing the tank meant stripping out the heads and having to rebuild the shower and toilet room, so that was a bit annoying. However, done now. We fixed the AIS, which we broke on the way back, or we didn't break it, it broke on the way back from Milford Haven last year. We bought a nice helm stool for the wheelhouse, again something that we realised we needed from experience last year. I did some rope work and Randy did the baggy wrinkles, which you saw that, and they're now installed. We retrimmed the boat. I had to move the lead ballast further aft, which meant making locker space for it in the engine room, so that was nice to get that done, and a whole raft of other small jobs. But eventually, of course, we had to tackle the bigger jobs, and that means dry docking. Solid day. So anything loose has been scraped off. We're just going to let those areas dry now because they're a little damp. I'll get the hot gun on them tomorrow to help. I've taken off most of the tingles. They're lying down there on the ground. That's lead plasters, really, I suppose the best way to describe them. There was one there you see on a butt end, which is fairly typical, and another one there, and we've decided they don't really need to be there. So we'll recork that seam there, look, and pay it, but actually there's no real need to have the tingle there. This is the water intake for the engine cooling system, so we're going to take that off, make sure everything's okay underneath, and there is a pad on the inside which needs replacing. We need some new anodes there, and this one's got to be replaced. You can see that's pretty well gone, look. And then the tingles again, 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, which I've done. It's cleaned up, scraped off, clean them up, let them dry, and paint basically now. We can do that. There are some seams that Dominic's marked that need repaying. They need repaying. That needs repaying. And there's a couple that need caulking. And Rob's actually doing that at the moment, so he's just started there. So that butt end needs recaulking, and this butt end needs recaulking. And there's a couple of graving pieces, one small graving piece there and another piece there. So that's just a few butt ends that need recaulking. So all in all, we're delighted. No new planks required, everything's good. Jamie's been tackling the whole drive shaft business. He's checked the shaft. Rudder came off obviously to get all that off, and I've just reshaped this. It had a sort of a dynamic balance panel bolted onto the front of the rudder to help it turn. It must have been heavy at one time, maybe back in the day when it had its old manual system, I don't know. But this panel came out to here, so I've just sculpted that there to give more space for the prop, because the prop sits here, and it was perilously close. The prop was perilously close to this leading edge of this dynamic balance bar. Overall, we're very pleased. You know, say no new planks, nothing really leaking. A few seams here that are a bit dodgy. I mean, there is a plank that we will one day. We're going to mark it. That number 9 one could do with one day, but you know, there's quite a few years left in it, so we're going to leave it for now. Right, I'm going to go and have a shower and then something to eat because I'm starving. Plugged. Next, Randy will do the painting, get some vinegar on there. I've used a hot gun on this morning to dry them out, so I've just got these two to do. Good afternoon everybody. It's 5:30, end of day 3 in dry dock. So we've had 2 full days because the first day was actually docking. This is our second day of working on the boat, and you can see that Randy has done the patch priming. We just prime only where we need to. So for instance here where there is bare wood, look, we'll prime that, and that's what Randy's doing here. So she's done most of it, but it's going to have 2 or 3 coats, so she'll continue that tomorrow. Rob has been doing some caulking, a couple of butt ends, that one there and that one there. I talked about that yesterday. They were originally tingled, but we're not going to tingle them because they look good. There's no need. There's a tingle here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see the round plugs in the middle. What we're going to do, following Dominic's advice, is to use a Forstner bit to get a nice round hole and put a nice oak plug, only about 1/2 inch deep, glued in, and then put the tingle back on, the lead tingle back over the top with a load of black shit behind it. So there's that to do. Here I've taken off, that's the water inlet to the engine cooling water inlet, so that goes over there, and then there's a big flange on there and the valve inside for shutting it off. So we've taken that off because the piece on the inside, the oak flange on the inside, was rotted, so we're going to have a new one made and then fitted. This valve here I have restored, and so that's all been refitted and tested, of course. But that's all back together again. That was an anode on there. That bolt there is not looking good on the inside, so I'm going to push that one through and we're going to replace that. More of Rob's caulking here, and I've just been round and painted red lead paint on there, so that the putty, which I'm going to be putting in the next few days, will have something to stick to. So there's that. So I've done all of that. Jamie's working on the drive chain. He's got a new flange, I'll show you later. He's put a new flange on the inside now, and he's going to align all that tomorrow, and then I can get I'm going to pay it with putty, and then that'll give it a couple of days to dry over the weekend, and we can slap some paint on, and it's a good one. Job done. So this just received the new batch of paint. This is our what's it called? Lemon yellow. Lemon yellow. It's lemon yellow. That's for the top sides. Up as far as the deck, the bulwarks are a different colour. They're slightly paler yellow. So appropriately, because it's coming up to Easter, we've just ordered this because we'd actually run out. So here we go. That's SML, as we said before, where we get our paints from. Now that's our lemon yellow. And look what we found in the bottom of the box. 2 Cadbury's cream eggs, neatly air packed. So there you go, Randy.
Thank you.
We've both done well. Randy and I have both lost, getting on for 10 kilos in the last month or 6 weeks, so we're doing really well. So we're going to eat those now. We're going to celebrate. So there you go, golden day, golden boat, and 2 cream eggs. I love a company with a sense of humour. This is the labelling on SML's incredibly robust cardboard boxes in which their paint is shipped, with of course some helpful suggestions for what you might or might not use the empty boxes for. Well done, SML. Oh no, MG Duff. So that one goes up there, and that's providing an earth for the engine. We've got 2 sort of donut shaped ones that go on the, where do these go? Not on the rudder, they go on here. They go on there. This is all part of realigning everything. You know, after we made those mechanical changes with the drive shaft that went, and the gearbox and the new coupling, we ended up being not quite straight. So Jamie's checked the prop shaft, and that's true. I mean, it was straight. Oh, such a mess in here, by the way. Right, I've actually got to get this floor up now, because what we're doing here, what Jamie is doing here, this is where that big panel that Jamie's made, I'll show you that in a minute, that sits in here. That's the bit I had to take out. That's when all this trouble started, when the bearings failed on this down at Milford Haven, and I had to dismantle it and take it out. So we had to work. This is our new platform for the charging and the bilge pump. Remember, this is the shaft, or the bearings I should say. These 2 bearings were the ones that got blown apart when we were up at Milford Haven, just completely worn out, and that was because all the weight of this here was on those 2 bearings. So it was all at the end of the shaft, and you can see what Jamie's done is extended the bed, the engine, the mount for these bearings and drives, and put a 3rd bearing in to support it at this end. He's also made this nice easy adjuster for the belt adjustment on the bilge pump. We didn't have that before. That's much neater. You see, this is all completely replaced. This mount now for the bilge pump is replaced. All this is new. This is all new. All the red bits are new, basically. And also we've had this much larger pulley put on here because our generator wasn't charging at low RPM. So that's that. So new bearing and all this. So I've just measured that up. I'm now going back to the boat to make sure it all fits. So we're really looking forward to getting that in, which should be very soon.
Right, so just put it down on the deck.
Get down. This was really our biggest challenge, the biggest job of the winter. This was to do with the PTO drive shaft that failed when we were in Milford Haven last year. And Jamie made a lovely job of redesigning all of that, and we fixed many of the problems that already existed with the old one. I don't mean just the failure, but for example, the tensioning system on the engine-driven bilge pump. I mean, it hadn't been used for so long, it was all corroded in, so we'd never been able to use it. So that was great to get all of that done. But also, it's inevitably, I suppose, with a job like this, such a big one, and given the nature of it, this was part of a whole drive chain. You've got this PTO drive shaft with its couplings and everything, and its pulleys. You've got the engine itself, the gearbox, and then you've got a flexible coupling to a prop shaft. And of course, all of that has to be aligned. And in redesigning, making this new assembly and replacing it, it was inevitable that it would have knock-on consequences. And it did. So when Jamie started the realignment, checked it, and it was obviously out, he had to loosen off all the engine mounts so that the engine could be moved, so it could be aligned. And in doing that, he discovered one of the engine mounts had failed. The securing bolt, the securing thread had all been worn away because the mounting had obviously been loose. So it was something we wouldn't have otherwise have found. It was nice to find it, and we could therefore replace all 4 mounts, and now we can sleep easy on that one. He also found a small water leak on the water pump, and in investigating that further discovered that the backing plate that you have to take off to put the new impeller in, because it had been like that for so long, remember we've been restoring the boat, not using it, and it had all corroded in and all the screws failed. So he was able to replace all the screws, so future maintenance is going to be that much easier. New impeller, of course. Jamie didn't like the fittings on the calorifier to engine hoses. That's the hot water from the engine which heats the water in our calorifier, gives us hot water. So he put some really nice 90-degree elbow joints on there, which should have been in the first place. So that was really nice. It was a great opportunity. So again, you know, we're future-proofing the boat from certain future failures. The coupling, of course, had to be changed because that was all worn. The holes were elongated on that. We sort of knew, we had an inkling about that. So that got done, and a flange on the end of the drive shaft as well. So there was a whole raft of little jobs that got done. Failures that would have caught us out at some time in the future, for sure. And it was much nicer to do it in the calm and security of Gloucester Docks with a lovely engineer like Jamie to fix them. When things fail, they never do so at a convenient moment. So this was hugely satisfying. So there you go, all nicely back together again. Looking all very neat and tidy. Really pleased with that. On the day we came out of dry dock, my 93-year-old mother, who lives in France, was rushed to hospital with serious problems related to a heart condition. So Randy and I hired a car and immediately took off for France. My lovely hire car. Thank you, Europe car. Lovely people. Came in here yesterday. We spoke to her yesterday morning. By the afternoon we'd hired this car, and by last night at 11 o'clock we were on a ferry from Portsmouth and arrived here this morning at the hospital at around about 11 o'clock. Lovely sunny France. And we're now off down to the cottage, La Pigeonnière, Mother's cottage. We had a crazy day yesterday. We came out of dry dock. In fact, I'm still actually wearing most of the clothes I was wearing when I was painting the bottom of the boat. Everything happened so fast. We came out of dry dock yesterday, drove the boat out, and then put her alongside a barge, moored her up, tied her down, and tested the engine for the first time in drive. We couldn't do that while we were floating in dry dock. And so there was a program of doing that yesterday, and everything worked out fine, and it runs beautifully. Everything seems to be lovely, which is great news. I was running around trying to find a company that would rent us a car, because remember, bringing a car to France is not the same as renting one within the UK, so there were certain problems with that. Eurocar do allow us immediately to take the car, and a big shout out to Emma at the Gloucester office. Sweet Emma, she was absolutely superb, really did us proud. We weren't expecting this amount of luxury, but it's been nice so far. It made the journey that much easier because it was a lot of stress. I came home having rented the car at sort of 5 o'clock and said, Randy, we've got to get to Portsmouth for a ferry leaving at 11. Anyway, we're off down to the cottage, and I'll do a little bit of filming down there, show you where we're staying. So. This is the lovely Lulud, the town hall. Let's take you for a little drive around the square here. So this is our local village. This is where Randy and I lived for 12 years. Not actually in the village, but just on the outskirts, where we're going in a minute. So these are some of the bars that we frequented regularly.
I wonder if the creperie is still there.
A sleepy little Lulud. Our bank. Now there's a doctor here on the right hand side. That was our doctor too, wasn't it? Children crossing. After 4 days in hospital, my mother made a remarkable full recovery. My brother and his 2 children came over from the UK, and we had a nice couple of days together before having to return our hire car to England.
Oh, suddenly it felt brilliant. Beep! We can't get hold of Nana, and Nana's just sitting there with a gin and tonic going, I'm waiting. I'll see them in a couple of days.
I would eat cold.
Yes, exactly. Precious or yogurt.
Well, you're not going to throw
It
it
is
on
a
my
nice
sister. No, we'll be sat in the back of the van.
you a cocaine or something and you wanted more right. This is the cottage that Randy and I completely restored from a derelict building when we lived in France 15 years ago. It's always a pleasure returning. Psychologically, better to be not thinking, God, I could really do with some more.
There's one for honing and
Pasta dish you eat the curry, but you wouldn't eat the pasta. Would you? Cold.
cold pasta salad. Beautiful.
This is what I'm up to today. You can see around the anchor there the grey bits, which is undercoat paint to cover up where the flukes on this anchor, when we raise it, these flukes are grabbing on the paintwork here and gouging out the woodwork, as you can see. So I've got a piece of metal here. I've made a template already, but let me put that template on for you. It's loosely. That's going to sit round there like that. And this is the piece of steel, the galvanised steel that I've got to put in there. So what I've got to do now is cut that accurately. That's just a crude cut. So I'm going to cut that accurately now. Put some felt and some of this mastic, what we call black shit, sort of a bitumen mastic. Put that in between the metal and in between the felt and the wood, and then the metal on top of the felt, so that the metal is isolated from the wood, and then screw it in place. So I've got some nice 1.5 inch screws and my little bag of tools there. So that's my job for today. Just let that dry a bit first before I peel it away. That's it. It's in its closed position, so water can't get in. It's got a nice rubber seal in there, which is good. And a bit of air in there. There we go. Perfect. Like it. Like it. The navigation from Sharpness down to Avonmouth, a passage of about 2 hours, is fraught with danger, not to be taken lightly. It's probably at its safest, funnily enough, on a windy spring tide, because then its standing waves, wicked currents and raging tidal stream make those dangers so obvious. It's probably at its most dangerous, actually, on a calm neap tide, because then it all looks so benign and safe. What it never is dull. Here's a little snapshot of its beautifully crafted navigation system based on suitably eccentric leading marks. Bear in mind that this is not the full picture of the navigation, and it is dated now. Some of this footage I took many years ago, and it could have changed. So if you are going to navigate the river, you need to research up-to-date information from the proper authorities. However, I hope this helps. The first leg is a hard turn to port out of Sharpness. Then pick up the leading marks at Berkeley Pill, just in front of the power station. While on the way to Berkeley Pill, look to the right and search for the fishing house transit. Once they line up, turn to starboard on a course of 218. On the way to Fishing House, look for the Bull Rock tidal gauge just abeam the power station. It marks the position of a narrow passage dynamited many years ago through the rocks. As you approach the tidal gauge, look at the power station buildings and pick out your next transit, Conigry. As soon as they align, turn to starboard on 077. With the Conigry transit at your back, look out for the Haywards Rock North Cardinal. Once past that, you need to change course for the Hills Flat starboard channel marker. Both of these marks are sitting on a rocky bank, so not too close, sandbanks of course on the other side. En route the Hills Flat starboard channel marker, look for the Gnarlwood transit, which also marks the wall of a tidal reservoir that used to supply cooling water to Albury Power Station. For me, this is one of the hardest transits to pick up until you get quite close. Before you reach the submerged wall, locate the Shepherdine transit behind you, probably one of the most obvious, and change course to starboard as they line up. Just before the Counts North Cardinal and tidal gauge, shift your course slightly to starboard and onto the Inward Rocks transit, which is one of the easiest to spot. You will actually get quite close to this transit before the Slime Road transit lines up to your left and you alter course to port on 210. Slime Road is initially quite difficult to pick up, but once you do, it's unmistakable, with its forward mark of a broad white painted concrete slope. You almost actually sail up this, so close in do you have to navigate to stay in the deep water channel. The next bit is my pet hate, the hen and chickens. Watch out that you are not dragged onto this bad boy, particularly on a spring ebb. It's sitting on a very big pile of rock just beneath the surface. The next transit is just as important as the others, and again it's quite difficult to pick up until you've done it a few times. The hard part is the rear mark on the bridge. It helps to count the arches in from the right. It's between the 7th and 8th set of pillars. When it's lit or sunny, it's actually easier to see this mark on the bridge, but in grey conditions, very hard. This area is called the Chutes, and the tidal stream runs up to 8 knots with no slack water. Keep good manoeuvring room between you and the bridge. You're probably going to go through it sideways. Morning everybody, thought I'd just share with you this glorious morning. Nothing to really report except we're just about to leave Hobbs Point, and I just thought it's so pretty here and so nice, the weather's so good this morning, it's nice and calm. I've had quite a choppy weekend really, one way or another, so this is a bit of a respite just for this morning, and it's getting windy again, so we're going back down to Dale Bay, where we will anchor and wait for some good weather so that we can head off over to Ireland. So there you go. I've showed you pictures from Hobbs Point before, but I can show you actually two sides of it. This, and in a minute I'll show you what we had to endure a little bit over the weekend. So you can see, you know, we've been soaring away at our capping rail. Right, I better move. I better start steering, otherwise we'll be back into the bank. It has been a pleasure and a relief to bring you this episode, so I hope you enjoyed it. I wish there'd been more sailing involved, but at least you know that we are poised and ready, and the next episode will come to you from either Ireland, Scotland or somewhere in the north of England as we make our way ultimately towards Sweden. More of that in the next episode. There are a couple of important points I was going to raise about our long-term plans, but somehow they don't really fit into this episode. One is in relation to my mother's health, which may mean Randy and I have to spend a little bit more time in France looking after her. And the other is to do with finance. We are pretty much now exhausted the savings that we used to restore Josefine, so we're going to have to do something about that in the future, because we've our income source has now dried up. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode.